Hey, thanks for joining me. I hope you caught that introduction to Chapter 3, because that's exactly what we're going to be going over. Chapter 3, Lucet Tenebris. And if you haven't, go ahead if you want to get some cool visuals, character introductions, a little, some spoilers into the chapter. I would go check that out if you want. If not, that's cool, but I highly suggest doing it. That way you can get kind of a visual of what's going on. And I go over some things that I don't really go over in the book, or at least describe some details. So go check that out. And just real quick, if you guys could just smash that subscribe button, hit all notifications, leave a like, leave a comment. I would love to hear about your feedback. But anyways, let's go ahead and just jump right into Chapter 3. Clearing the entirety of Mansion's grounds, I headed inward in a direction I haven't tried yet. While in my travels through these towering trees with giant branches, structures was that you never stay on the ground. The forest floor was riddled with trap spiders, worms, and underground dwellings that I only know of from my father's discoveries of the inhabitants of this planet. Most of them are fearsome, gruesome creatures built to sustain and survive this horrid, trialing place. Beyond the lush forest was a spot I had never truly went past, and that's where I want to try and venture to today. Walking up to the trunk of a tree, I bend my legs, and with one easy great lift upwards, I swoosh into the canopies of the trees, landing elegantly onto a branch. When landed, I smell the environment forward because the tops of the trees cover so much of the ground and inner canopies that there are still dark-dwelling creatures that may be here waiting patiently for their next catch. Hundreds of the larger flying creatures of these lands stay clear of the tops of the trees because of a nasty parasitic tree worm that rule the canopies. They're foul and grotesque, but they produce a unique layer of protective mucus that comes in handy for some of my more advanced Presidium spells. Some of which I have never had to use or even know what they fully do, to be quite honest. My sister is quite capable of protecting herself, but her glooming haunt always puts me to unease sometimes. Her looming doom, yet smiling face, seems to contradict itself, but I know that deep down that I love her as my own sister. The only thing that I have at the moment. Looking forward and noticing that there was no dangers, I started my way to position, as I needed to cross a vast plain of ash, lava, and heat. Running through the canopies of the forest, you begin to hear the deathly whisper that lay deep within the depths of its belly. The serpentine snickers will lead you into a venomous trap that you cannot even imagine. Being paralyzed by massive reptilians and slowly fed on every now and again until you essentially turn into a slurry of nutrition for their fonts of fuming death. They're a disgusting bunch. They often try and spar with me and always lose. Some of them are just trying to get by in their own gross, deathly ways, but I have no place for them in my life, so I eliminate them as I see fit, especially their Nagari shaman. They're most deadly out of them all. Their presence on this planet is plentiful as the rain and mist of the lands. They stay clear of the opening of the mansion, yet will train many of their creatures to venture to seek our destruction on purpose. Many of the higher populated areas stay away from us, knowing they are no match to either of us, especially me. They only mean harm to me and my own, to my knowledge, so I just carry on knowing if I come across them or their kin, I bury them for smaller insects on the ground, and happily knowing that they serve a greater purpose beyond preying on the death for others. Coming up to a large opening, with a vast rocky opening from some sort of fault line, was looming with ghastly mists of foreign nature that dissolves anything that may travel through it. I peered down to the base of some of the trees that are still standing from the acid mists, and notice a bunkering dip near a large, half-eaten tree trunk. Looking down, I leap and land quietly in case of an unwanted ambush from some frenzied faction of the deep, dark forest serpents. Keeping my sword steady, I approach the opening of a large-mouthed cave system of sorts. Approaching, a dark smell fell upon my nose, and there was a flicker down on the cave's floor. Fast, but very obviously a shimmer of something down there. I looked around and found the roots of a tree near by punching through the ground, and grabbed the roots and yanked them free, using it as a rope down to the curious shimmer. Within seconds, the smell of gases were filling my nostrils with a cringed stench. The smells became more and more unbearable as I descended further. Nearly reaching the bottom, I jumped to free fall for the remaining 20 meters to a massive glowing puddle. Movement in the waters created a bioluminescent reaction, leaving a glow of red glitter. Water being as cold as ice, I climbed the edges to a ledge to catch some dry ground. The stench was not becoming, and started to reveal the culprit at hand here. At first, I didn't realize it, but I fell into a trap out of pure curiosity. Eerie clicking echoed off the dark cave's massive walls. I drew my sword in anticipation. Jim's sword, feeding from the light that was peeking in from the cave's mouth all the way up at the top, began to almost swell in power. As I slowly looked into the darkness, the shimmer met my eyes, and for the first time in many days, I found something. With my sword still drawn, I walked to a thickly mossed stone with what seemed to be a metallic wand stabbed into the top of it. The shimmering was coming from a little bit showing from the top that wasn't covered in moss. I knelt down to get a closer look, and noticed a protective barrier around the wand itself. Not in a radial sense, but more of a conforming one that only went around the wand itself. I couldn't make out whether or not it was going to afflict me, but before I could figure it out, movement broke my focus. I swung behind me in the direction of the movement I felt, slicing air, shearing through the tons of stone and stalagmites with great ease. Nothing appeared but crumbling stone hitting the ground, and the sounds of echoes ringing off the cave's walls. Feeling for the wand behind me, I grabbed it, and as I watched for the source of my guest's presence, then suddenly my hand grabbed the wand. It burst with a green lightning, with a great fury of flames that did not burn. The light rang vision and vitality into my mind, my eyes capable of seeing a veil not there at the surface. The wand came free from its long-needed slumber, but still I wrapped it in a magical rat leather. The wand, now wrapped, fell back asleep, and the great light show came to an end with the sound of a voice. This voice didn't have a sound but a feeling inside. The voice's ember tones was brushed to the side as I heard something. Turning swiftly again, I drew my lightless blade. A shaman's dart broke, shattering into a green plume of magical stench on the Xiongei. The magical debris flying in all directions. I power up my stance, and with a great breath, time itself started to slow around he and I. I assert my gaze upward, eyes glowing with a radiant darkness, with sword at my hip ready to send him back to the green hell. He had in his hands a glowing green flame pacing slowly behind his childish Nagari shield. His eyes, eager to have a go with me, blinking with certainty. He throwing his muscular arms forward, sending a hellfire of hollow arche, only to be stopped by my protective charms. We both assume our positions as time slows around us due to our own auric fields. Just as he motions to throw another arche spear, I jet stream through, only to have my sword's blow deflected by his shield, resulting in a large portion of the cave to start breaking its stalactites, leaving a tracer of red, shimmering dust particles. He lunges forward with a summoned katana as he whips his green flames. I evade backwards, the ground concaving as his arcane weapon hits the solid ground. Flames bursting out of him, making their way to me. In a flash, I make a strike again. This time, I plan to make an attempt from above him. Moving so quickly, I leave an after image of myself, with the flames exploding below me, where he thought I was. I had already made my way above and flung myself off of a falling stalactite, and just as he realized I was gone, I already landed behind him. He stood there for a moment, with a great mist of Nagari blood. Dark black blood made its way off of my sword. Performing Chiburi to remove the blood from my blade, I further inspected the artifact that lay in my hands. Blood covered the cave floor, revealing the severed body parts and blood-soaked cave moss. The blood of these beings was foul as their will to keep living. They live off the death and decay of others, and not just in a way of survival. They are quite mystical in a sense that they pray to the gods that prey off the pain and labor of others. It seeped into the water, and as the last flicker of green flame dissipates, I raise my hand over his body and chant Sangus Ruptus. Sheathing my blade, his body explodes in fury, purposely desecrating his remains all over the cave's presence. Suddenly, the voice returned, but this time I could make out exactly what it was saying, but I knew someone that would know. I started towards the cave opening, where the root laid in anticipation to leave, just as I was. There was no way to explore through the cave as the darkness was starting to swallow the sky, but this artifact was the only thing I have found that even closely resembles the presence of other familiar beings here. Grabbing the root rope, I climbed a little winded, needing to make it home. Making it to the surface, I was delighted to find myself breathing the fresh air. I feel the impression of the wand in my back belt pocket wrapped in the leather of a rat, and started my way to get up in the tree lines. Headed home, I had more questions than answers, but ached to get back to the books and see if I couldn't find some text in my parents' library about this rare item. I leaped from mega branch to branch in a rush to get home, slowly becoming faster with every push from tree to tree. A sudden flash of red beam shot up into the sky where the house was, and then vanished just as fast. The air was thick with a nasty cloud of ash, and accumulated near the opening to the grounds of the house. Without being able to see a thing, my hair on my arms rose in anticipation, as if knowing there was danger lurking ahead. What was that light I saw beaming into the lightly darkened sky? Was Jem all right? My heart began to race, and with it I sped up my pace, leaving the tree splitting with every stride. Seeing a massive silhouette in the distance just beyond the tree lines, I launched myself towards the ground and beamed my way off the ground, flying into the opening of the house to find it between me and the house's reinforced door. A most unclean being lay in front of me. I grabbed some Lux powder from one of my belt pockets, wireless ready to clash. The smell of demon filled the air as the suns tucked themselves tightly behind the horizon, closing their eyes to the desecration of the being's presence. And that concludes chapter 3. So, if you haven't yet go check out the introduction for this chapter. It is very, very useful for some of these things that you may be wondering, what exactly was that? You will find out here in chapter 4, but you can get a visual from those introductions that I do before I kind of start doing the audiobook, if you will. So go check them out, and again, it really helps. Leave a like, leave a comment, hit the subscribe with all notifications so you can always check up on my updates. And other than that, thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you for chapter 4. Bye.